Hey guys, we're live here. James Williams and I, Patrick Muley. We're here today to talk about not focusing on what you don't want and what that looks like, and how to focus on what you do want. The differences between the two.
It's a big
James?
one.
Yeah,
So yeah, we talked about this. We always think about it's interesting when you talk to people who are trying to change their life, they tell you a lot about the things they don't want. And on the surface level, that seems great, being clear about what you don't want. But we're going to talk a little bit about why you actually don't need to focus that much on what you don't want, and why focusing on what you do want is going to bear way more fruit.
exactly. So, it's if you think about, when you're in a place where you're stuck, right? And we're talking about the topic too of being like unfulfilled in your life, right? You're maybe at a certain point in your life, you know where you want to be, or maybe you don't yet. Maybe you don't have full clarity, but something just doesn't feel right. You don't feel fulfilled in what you're doing. You feel like there's something more for you, um, but you just can't break out. Sometimes it can feel like you're sinking in quicksand, right? You just can't get unstuck, right? Um, so what happens? We start focusing on all the things we don't want. Man, I don't want to feel low energy anymore. I don't want to, um, I don't want this or I don't want that. Um, so what happens? You start getting stuck in this loop where you think about what you don't want, and then what happens is you start visualizing the things that you don't want to happen. Like maybe you visualize yourself gaining weight because you're just struggling. You don't know what to do from a nutrition standpoint or a workout standpoint. And then you start to feel that what's worse is you start to feel the emotions that come along with that, right? Of being stuck and not being able to change. And what happens is there's really nothing in your brain or your psyche or emotions that is giving you that forward momentum to shoot for. There's nothing to like shoot for, because what you're actually feeling and focusing on is the negative thing that you don't want. So there's
Mhm.
really no way to move towards that thing that you want unless, right? Unless you start reframing. So that's something we use in coaching. I'm sure James, you use this quite a bit too, where someone comes to you and you say, well, what are some of your goals? What do you want? Oh, man, well, I don't want to be where I'm at. Okay, great. Well, let's take that and let's use that, right? How can we reframe that in a positive? So just for instance, like the example of, I don't want to gain any more weight. I don't want to feel overweight anymore. Okay, well, let's take that. What do you want? Well, I want to lose weight. I want to be lighter. I want to feel healthier. Okay. Well, those are the things that we have to start putting in place. Are What does that version of you look like? If you were to achieve that version of yourself, how would you feel? What kind of emotions would you be feeling? What kind of things would be you'd be saying to yourself as that version of yourself? So you're starting to create the picture, right? We used the analogy of the puzzle before. If you don't
Mhm.
know what the puzzle looks like of what you're creating, like when you look at the box, and you're putting the puzzle together, if you don't have that, it's way harder to put the puzzle together when you don't even know what it looks like. So you just have a bunch of random pieces, right? So that's what we're shooting towards. So I'm curious, your take on that, maybe an example you can.
Yeah, I mean, here's one way you can think about this, right? There's a lot of studies out there about why some people are motivated to progress forward towards what they know they want, and why some people struggle. And it's not that the fear of what we don't want is necessarily completely bad, but what they found is that there's a pull towards what they do want, and there's also a push from what they don't want, right? So the push comes from fear, the pull comes from possibility.
Mhm.
Now, the difference between the two is that the pull is a positive thing, right? You're looking at what you do want and how that feels. And all those emotions associated with that, as Patrick said, are positive, which means they lift you up. You're like excited to experience those things, which in itself is energy to motivate you to take action. The push is, I don't want to go back. I do not want to go back to where I was. So there's use in that, but we've got to make sure that the pull is stronger than the push, that the emotion of possibility and benefit is stronger than the fear of the demise of going back, right? So there's a
Yeah.
balance there, right? So
Yeah.
as Patrick said, it's like, you know, thinking more about what you want not only makes you feel great about the possibility and motivates you and gives you energy towards it, but it will also, that mindset of what do I want, helps us ask questions that translates to actual action. What do I do to get what I want, and why do I want it? So,
Yeah.
I mean, we can use some examples there, Patrick. You and I are both mountain bikers, right?
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people listening understand the concept of you get what you focus on, even if you're focusing on what you don't want.
Yeah.
As mountain bikers, a common thing is you're going down a trail and you might see a tree root coming out, going right across that trail. If you're focused on, I don't want to hit that tree root, what happens?
Yeah, you hit it.
You hit the tree root.
That's where your focus and your attention is,
Right.
right? Versus maybe seeing beyond it, and
Mm.
picking your lane, your path, and getting around it.
What have
Uh,
you seen, Patrick, as being some of the biggest things that your clients don't want and hence struggle to not get more of what they don't want?
yeah, it's a great question. A few different areas. It's. I mean, for me, I mentioned it earlier. It's I don't I don't want to keep gaining weight, right? But they're stuck in a place where they don't really know what to do not to do that, because if they
Mm.
did, they wouldn't have been doing it. They wouldn't have got there in the first place. So I think it's one of the ones where I don't. That's a big one. I don't want to continue to gain weight. I don't want to. It's all negatives. I don't want to not have energy,
Right. Don't want
right?
to be low.
Um,
So I'd love to ask a cool question that
yeah,
will help your clients, right? Why don't your clients want to gain weight?
because then they see a worse future for themselves. They see the first, what it really is they see a future of being able to do less of the things that they really want to do.
Right. Disease and
Yeah,
unhealthiness, right? Why don't they want a future with disease and unhealthiness?
because it just doesn't allow you to live your life.
Right. Why doesn't it allow you to live your life?
Well, you start to feel more aches and pains, right? When you feel more aches and pains, you don't want to move. When you don't move, you feel more aches and pains. So it's really a downward spiral,
Right.
you
So
know?
now let's help them flip it. Right. They now know all the reasons why they don't want to feel they want to feel. Why do you want to be healthy? Why do your clients want to lose weight and feel good?
Multitude of reasons. I mean, they want to feel more confident. They want to feel more capable. Um, but there's also deeper reasons, not even just personal. Like a lot of guys have families, right? And
Mm.
and they want to be healthy for their kids. They want to set a good example for their kids. They want to be able to run around the yard, not get winded. They want to be able to go on hikes. They want to be able to travel. It's really not about the physical capability as much as it is the things that the physical capability that you have is allowing you to do.
And
You
feel,
know,
right? You know,
yeah, it's
they
it's
want to be able to feel the freedom of, I can physically, mentally, and emotionally do anything I want to do, and I'm going to feel and experience the joy of running around with my kids. I had a client recently who, typically would react to negative situations, but because he's learned to be so present,
mm,
he I reacted really positively to a negative situation. But he said to me, James, there's this show that I watch, and I've watched it, like, I always watch it. I've probably seen the same series over and over again, but I was watching it the other day and it was just making me laugh more than ever. And I've seen the episode before, but I was laughing like out loud. And my wife said to me, why are you laughing so much? You've seen the episode like 1,000 times. Because I don't know, it's just so funny. And it's because he was so present to the joke, or so
yeah,
present to the show, that and not thinking about all the other things, that he could enjoy it. So just what you're saying, imagine a future where you're not actually thinking about your weight. You're not actually thinking about how bad you're feeling. You're just present to life because you have a natural vibrancy that this new direction has given you.
Exactly. You're able to envision that new version of yourself. I just again I'm reading a book right now about from Matthew Kelly talking about the sole purpose of our life is to become a better version of ourselves, and that's something to get excited about that we can actually do that, from a physical standpoint, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. I mean, all these realms where we can improve our life. That's something to get excited about. And one thing I want to point out is like an 80-20 rule here. So you said you had a good point earlier where we don't want to ignore the things that we don't want, but we want to use them as a springboard to determine what we do want. So,
Mhm.
I to quantify it, we're guys, we're talking to guys here, mostly, and guys are usually better with numbers. If you could think about it this way, there's a little practical takeaway is focus on what you don't want, like maybe 10 to 20% of the time, to be able to reframe what you do want, and then spend 80% of your time focusing on the things that you do want,
And
right?
why you want them.
And why you want them. Yeah, the why is huge. And this way, you're starting to visualize that new version of yourself. You're starting to think, self-talk is huge. Create some positive affirmations around what you do want, and why you want it and why you deserve to have it,
Mhm.
and focus on those things, because the more you build that muscle of doing that, the more you're going to let go of the things that you don't want. And like you said, be present to what you do want, and make choices in every moment. Every moment you have uh, the ability to make a choice of what you want to focus on. And when you ask yourself, like you said before, better questions, you get better answers. So if
Mhm.
you're asking yourself, okay, I'm at a crossroads right at this moment, I can I can choose to put my, running shoes, biking shoes on, whatever you're gonna do, and do that thing that I know is gonna make me a better version of myself, even if you don't feel it. Because right, you don't want to live by your feelings and your emotions, or else you'll be like a ship without
For
a rudder
sure.
at sea. Um, you want to live with values and principles, and make your decisions based on those. Right? We're not going to always feel like we want to go do that thing, or we're going to feel like we want to eat that piece of pie versus eat that healthy piece of food
Yeah,
or
it's
whatever.
it's always the after effect, right? It's the why. I mean, how many
Yeah,
people actually love lifting a heavy thing off the ground over
yeah,
their head? I mean, really, do they love that process? No,
no,
they love
very
the way it
very
makes them
small,
feel,
very
right?
small percentage of people
Yeah.
actually enjoy the pain.
It's like
Uh,
well, eventually you will enjoy the process because
mhm.
you're going to start getting pumped full of endorphins. But
Yeah,
people that are
eventually.
gym addicts, they know what's going to happen. They're like, I'm going to get a pump. My body's going to look great, whatever it is, right or wrong. They're addicted to what's going to happen afterwards. And even with eating the pie, it's probably more that the pie is going to satiate you and make you feel good afterwards than it is the actual process of putting something in your mouth. Really, we are more addicted to the after. So, like, use
We
that.
are. We are.
It's
No,
like
yeah,
a lot of
for
the
sure.
guys listening. There might be guys listening that are business owners, and this is kind of how you run a business. Like if the whole time in a business you were only thinking about what's gone wrong and what you don't want to happen, you're not going to think about the progressive stuff of what do we need to include, what do we want from our business, what's some new creative ways of thinking about this. It's the same in business. You've got to spend majority of your time thinking about growth, not thinking about all the things that have gone wrong.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because I'm so glad you brought that up, and getting off the health thing for a little bit, like when it comes to business, 'cause I've been in this situation before where I've seen in times where the economy's down, it what's the first budget that gets cut typically that you see? See if we're on the same page with this.
Well, I mean, people just cut everything.
Usually, usually I see the marketing budget gets cut,
Oh,
right?
marketing. Yeah, yeah,
Right. So marketing gets cut, advertising and stuff, which is honestly like in a downturn, you think that's the first thing you should ramp up. I mean, if
for
you have
sure.
the money, the cash reserves to do it.
Why
Uh,
entrepreneurs typically do better in recessions because you know, they're less risk averse and they go all in, right? It's like
exactly.
they do
Instead,
great.
because there's only so much you can cut, but you have an unlimited ability to create more revenue.
Yeah, and don't cut the thing that's feeding you. It's like it's short-sighted, right?
Yeah,
It seems like the obvious thing, but again, it's like that, like you said, it goes back to the 80-20 mindset. It's if the majority of the time we're thinking, what do I need to get to where I want to go? And why do I want to go there? Whether it's business or personal, hence why a lot of the time I talk about the business of you, because really it's the same. Then actually a lot of the things you don't want are going to be solved anyway by moving forward towards what you do want.
exactly. They're going to naturally drop off.
Right. So if like the clients aren't coming in, if there's a downturn in business, you're not going to get more clients by switching off the thing that gets you clients.
Exactly. That's
Right.
my point.
Maybe there's a more efficient way of doing it. And you know, but again, you're problem solving towards continuation of profit, right? Rather than I'm going to wrap myself in bubble wrap and try and stay safe while the waves are hitting, right? It's
Exactly.
like,
Just yeah, let the storm pass kind of deal. But
yeah, it's like
yeah,
you know, there's you can always move forward, but the mindset of what do I need, why do I need it, and what can I do is progressive.
yeah,
It's the curiosity mindset. I think it's one of the things we want to talk about at some point is, you know, if you're curious about how to get there more than judging yourself for where you've been, then that's forward motion.
exactly. And a great book, a great simple classic, and I'm sure you've read it too. That I would recommend for this developing this kind of mindset is "Who Moved My Cheese," right?
Right. Yeah.
'Cause someone's always going to be moving your
Yeah.
cheese, and it's about little mice going around a maze, and someone moves the cheese, and one mouse gets all flustered and frustrated or whatever, and the other one goes, "Okay, well, it's not here. I'm going to go over there," and so it's
I'm
like
going to go and get
really
more
that's
cheese.
that's a
Yeah,
it's a
totally.
great book to read. Really really short read,
It
but
is. People get
powerful.
stuck in a mindset, right? So there's another book for it. It's U squared or the quantum leap theory, right? It's this. There's this story about the fly flying up against the window pane, and next to that window pane, there's a window that's open, but that fly just keeps banging itself
Yep.
against that one window,
Yeah.
and it won't try anything different because it just is so determined to go that way. It thinks if I waste time going sideways, I'm
Mhm.
never going to get there. So it just keeps trying the same thing over and over and over again. If you don't change the way you think, your life's gonna be the same now as it's in 20 years' time, it'll be the same. Right. If you're that fly thinking that you're going to try the same thing you've been trying and expect a different result, you're going to be living in the same place,
Exactly.
experiencing the same thing. So all we're saying is kind of try something different. And from what we know, the different is positive realization of what you want, how to get it, and recognizing every step along the way the progress you're making.
Exactly. And just focus on the day. I mean, can't express that enough. You're going to hear us
Yeah.
say that a lot is a successful life is really only a bunch of successful days strung together. So
Yeah.
if you could focus on one day of success and let that build and build and build, you won't have to worry about the result. I mean,
Right.
you'll gradually work your way towards that.
And it's a lot less overwhelming. Just think about,
Yeah.
what can I do today to feel great? Right. Even hour by hour, right? It doesn't have to be big, achievable things. For the next, if I can be present with the next hour, what would this hour have to be to feel great, to feel like I've achieved something great this hour? Sometimes it's as simple as I'm just going to be present. I'm on this call with Patrick and I'm just going to pay attention to him and we're going to have a great conversation and I'm not going to think about this other stuff going on. That's a successful hour. That's an energy efficient hour.
Exactly. Like you just said, you hit the nail on the head. It's being present in everything you do. So just like a successful life is a string of successful days, a successful day is a string of successful hours. You can keep breaking it down. So whenever you have the ability to be present, because you're going to notice the days that you're just allow all these distractions to come in, you feel unproductive, you feel
Mhm.
unfulfilled, right? But it's when you sit down to do something and you block everything else out and you focus on when you're done, move on to the next thing. Very
Mhm.
hard to do. I mean, I struggle with that sometimes too. There's some days where did this day go?
Yeah.
Right? But the days where you kind of have it planned out, you kind of have intention when you wake up, maybe you have it mapped out a little to-do list, checklist, um, definitely helps you be
For
productive
sure.
and
One
stable.
step at a time. That's where, and going back to it, that's where understanding why you're doing it is really important, because on those days where it is hard and there are distractions, like it's in high performance theory, we call it necessity, right?
Mhm.
When you have,
Yeah.
when you wake up with a level of necessity, you know why it's necessary to show up. You do, right? It's like if you, for anyone who's got kids, right? You know why it's necessary to show up for your kids. There's not even a doubt. It's there's necessity there.
Sure.
If you can build necessity into your own progress, like you know why it's necessary. 20% there's this push of I don't want to go back, and 80% is this pull of if I keep going, I'm going to experience all this amazing benefit. Awesome. There's my necessity. Yes, it's hard. Okay, what can I do to simplify today and just move forward, even if it's by a tiny bit?
Mhm.
And I think that's a powerful reminder that,
For
you know,
sure.
it's just keep it simple.
Yeah. Yeah, keep it simple. Exactly.
So it's
So,
been a great conversation, Patrick.
for sure.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, like always, yeah, this has been great. Hopefully, providing some value for you guys again. Engage with us when you see these posts online, ask questions. We're here. We don't want to just talk to you and preach to you. We want some interaction here. So we're here to answer any questions. You want to learn more about what we do. Um, Love to hear from you.
See you soon. Take care.
Take care, guys. Okay.